just played 150 hours on Vintage Story. That is an amazing amount. My last map I played 177 hours. And in that 150 hours, I have all the mechanics set up. I have also completed, if you want to call it that, the Resonance Archive and the Lazaret. I have built a boat and I have an elk, so we are doing pretty well. I also have pigs that are breeding and a barn. I thought that what I would do is a build and chat, except it's going to be a pan and chat. And I have talked previously about how one's real life fears, likes, dislikes translate into computer games. But in this episode, I would like to talk about the other way round and how computer games do feed into one's real life. So I'm not going to talk about the physical side, that playing computer games is quite a static occupation, although it's mentally very challenging, at least to me. But, you know, and how you have to make sure you get exercise and move and things like that. What I'm going to talk about is something a little bit more deeper. For example, in a couple of episodes recently, you may have noticed that I was freezing cold. And it's interesting because when I stopped playing that particular session, I had to go outside in the garden into the warm sunshine to warm up. Even though I was playing in a room that was warm, the visual effect and the shaking as you shiver when you freeze, you know, the sort of snow that comes around the screen, all of it made me felt incredibly cold. And I couldn't believe that a video game would have such an effect on me physically, and yet it did. It's the same with, you know, if I'm out in the rain, I can actually feel quite chilled. The other thing is that I do tend to dream about video games, and I have a recurring dream where I'm building a grey tower out of blocks. I don't know whether that goes back to my sort of map 2 I played in Vintage Story, which was my second really huge map, where I did actually build a grey tower, which was, I thought, very successful, given that the game was young at that point. But it was quite interesting, I think, that I do get this recurring dream and I dream about it. Now that's very different from being awake at night and thinking about how you're going to build next and what you're going to build and what you're going to do. This is actually your subconscious going back into computer games. People say, or psychologists say, that those who play computer games are more aware of when they're dreaming, whether it's about computer games or something else, than people who do not play computer games. I find that very interesting. I'm going to move some of these off my bar. So in addition to computer games affecting me physically and affecting my dreams, I do find that when I am looking at things, it will come back to me. For example, if I'm driving through the countryside, I looked at something and thought, gosh, that looks like Vintage Story. Or some of the travel programs, I look at it and I think, oh my goodness, that looks like Vintage Story. It's one thing saying Vintage Story looks like real life. It's quite interesting when you look at real life and think, oh my goodness, that looks like Vintage Story. Just shows how good the devs are at making it look fantastic, and they are. The other thing that does affect me is my knowledge of rocks. When Vintage Story was first set up, one of the first people, who is still a dev today, is a lovely guy called Red Ram, and he's what they call a rock hound. He collects rocks and knows a lot about rocks, geology. And he helped the devs with the rocks and made sure that all the rock strata were correct, that the ores you find in the different strata are correct. So in fact, I think my knowledge of rocks has improved enormously since I've been playing Vintage Story. And talking of knowledge, there's all sorts of things in computer games that I'd never heard of until I played Vintage Story. Thule, I think the Americans pronounce it. I would call it Thule is one of them. And there's another series I'd never even heard of until I played computer games. Some of the rocks I'd never heard of. And I have to say that the way that I have learnt about different plants and rocks from computer games has been incredible, in that I do crosswords. And I'm a lot better at crosswords now, because when they say, oh, X type of rock that's found Y, I can normally say, oh yes, that's basalt or something like that. So I am a lot better at computer games because it has indeed increased my knowledge. I've always thought that Vintage Story would be a very, very good game for young teenagers, because a lot of what is in it is accurate. Not the drifters, not the bow torn, but a lot of things in it are actually accurate, and that's very, very nice to see. So it does give me a greater knowledge of the world and a better vocabulary. As well as that, I think what you get in Vintage Story is a sense, indeed in all computer games, is a sense of community. Very few people watch me when I play Stardew Valley. I think I get about 10 views sometimes, maybe 40 if I'm lucky, or doing something unusual. But nonetheless, there are some lovely people who have coached me through that, and who I feel I have a continual dialogue with. I always feel I have a huge bond with those of you who watch my videos. I'm very lucky, because I seem to have a whole load of really, really nice people who watch my videos. And I can't tell you how good that is, that one's audience is civil, charming, funny, you know, happy to help. Some of them are new to Vintage Story and happy to learn, which is also good. So that sense of my individual community is very nice. It would be very easy to say, oh, you're playing Vintage Story all by yourself, you're alone in a world. But I don't feel that. I know that you watch my videos, and I feel that every one of you are with me. I find it almost impossible to play Vintage Story without chatting, and I'm sitting alone in a room chatting away, but I feel that I'm actually chatting to people. So I have a sense, even though theoretically I'm alone, that you are all with me, and that you're running along at my shoulder, you know, you're gasping at my deaths, you're, you know, thinking, oh, I wouldn't build like that, I'd do it differently. And many of you do comment, and for that I thank you very much. But this sense of community, I think, is quite amazing, that I actually feel that you are there with me. But there is a wider community as well. And if you play on servers, you do pick up friends, and if you play at the same time or in the same place on a server, you do find that you are building up a community. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the very, very touching story, which was about a guy that played in World of Warcraft, I believe, and he was in one of the elite teams. In real life, he was in a wheelchair, and his parents were always upset about how much time he played, locked in his room playing computer games. Unfortunately, he died, and only one of the team had his email address, and when they noticed he hadn't been on for some time, she reached out and asked why he wasn't playing, and his parents told her that he had died. And at that point, it was quite incredible that his parents had no knowledge of how good he was and how much part of the community he was, how much value he was, and how revered he was in that community. And the outpouring of grief was incredible. There were online vigils, you know, people burning candles, all sorts of things. And his parents suddenly realised that even though in real life he'd been crippled, in his own community he was totally different. And we have a living example of that, and that is the guy that plays Minecraft called Scar, who has a phenomenal online community. And when he's playing Minecraft, he can run, he can jump, he can create. He's a fantastic builder. His freedom is in Minecraft. And for a lot of people who may not be physically free in real life, when they play computer games, they can be mentally free. Also, computer games can be a refuge. In season 2 of The Tree, I played with a young guy who was 14 years old in Australia. So he and I actually lived on opposite sides of the world. And he was having a rough time at school. He didn't say he was being bullied, but it was pretty obvious he was. And I was telling him stories about how when I was 14, what happened to me, what I looked like, how difficult it was for me. And we played together and built together. And he actually said that I had helped him through a really difficult time. And that's the way life goes sometimes. As some of you know, my husband has been extremely ill recently. And it is amazing to me the support I have had from the community. It's been fantastic, actually. Completely and utterly fantastic. And people have just rallied around and not worried. I played on a server with a guy called Lone Wolf, and he was so kind, saying, don't worry, you know, I'll do the gathering, I'll do this, you just play when you can. Eventually on Crystal Seas I had to give up because my home life got sort of beyond what was acceptable. I just couldn't keep up with playing on the server. But nonetheless, people have helped me through difficult times as well. And communities can be very protective of their own. I was playing on a server and one guy was treating me appallingly. I didn't say a word to him. I'd never done anything wrong to him. Whether he's in a bad mood, I don't know, but he just got at me all day. And it was amazing how people stood up for me and didn't let that happen and wouldn't have him sort of playing there near me. So they stood up for me as well. So that sense of community is quite hard to find in real life sometimes, and for some people. There are a lot of autistic people who play computer games, and in most cases they are a complete asset. They are fantastic. They really, really do add to the game. They really, you know, if you're building with them or doing anything with them, they are phenomenally good. And that is a welcoming community, you know, that's not so easy in real life. So it's one of these things where you can find communities that you wouldn't normally find. And you find people you wouldn't normally find. I mean, I chat to people all over the world. I mean, I had a discussion with one of my followers who's followed me for years. Hi, Sarah, who lives in the Arizona desert. It's an unimaginable world to me. You know, I live in England. Someone who lives in the desert is totally different from me. I'm friends with people who live in all different countries, different nationalities. You know, it's fantastic. It's very hard sometimes when you've got friends who are Russian and friends who are Ukrainian, and you've got the situation that is happening between Russia and Ukraine. Very, very difficult indeed. But what we all do is just ignore it and say, well, I'm not in Russia, I'm not in the Ukraine, I'm actually in Vintage Story. Let's get on with life. It's very, very difficult. Friendships can be made cross borders in computer games that would be hard to achieve in real life. Even though I have to say that I myself have friends from very different nations throughout the world. So that sense of community is there. And above all, friendship. You know, there is so much friendship. There are people I know that would support me through thick and thin, as I've said, people that I would support thick and thin. And sometimes if you need someone to talk to, your own circle aren't the sort of people you can talk to. They're the last people you might talk to. But when you're playing a computer game, then it's different. You can play with who you like. So I think that it's amazing how computer games affect your life. Because if you are feeling lonely, you go online, chat to people, you know, build a tower together, go and fight demons together, you know, whatever you want to do online, it's there. And there are huge communities that spring up and support each other. So I think that friendship is one of the things that you find online that is very hard to find in real life. But because we all have a common interest in computer games, you're already playing with people where you know you've got something in common. And I think that the sort of games we play tend to group people together. You know, I've played Banished, I've played Stardew Valley, I've played Planet Base, which I love, and I've played Minecraft, and now I play Vintage Story. They're all in a sort of genre, and I do find that I am playing with people who are like-minded souls for the most part. So I really, really think that computer games affect us in the very, very best of ways. I really do. And all the people who criticise computer games, and I can understand it, you know, if you're sitting there with your waistline expanding and your muscles rotting, then I can understand you need to get out more, guys, you need to get out more. But those who say that, you know, they're mind-boggling, they've never played games that really stretch your mind and things like that, I think it's very, very good. I think also that those who criticise computer games, saying that they make you violent, people who like violence will play violent computer games. I don't think you will ever see me playing Call of Duty unless they wanted me to stand up front as cannon fodder. We all tend to play to our strengths and to do things we like doing. So I think that some of the feelings about computer games are just people where their normal personality comes to life. I don't think computer games really do affect you badly or bring out underlying violent traits that might not be there already. One of the ways in which computer games can affect real life is financially. Now, I'm a small YouTuber, so basically I don't make much money. In fact, I think I run at a loss, but I don't care because I do this for sheer pleasure. But some of the big YouTubers have made an absolute fortune out of computer games. When you get millions and millions of views, it is incredible how much money you can make. And the guy I mentioned called Scar, he would find it difficult to earn money with the illness he's got in real life. But because he's such a brilliant designer and builder in Minecraft, it becomes very easy for him to earn a lot of money with computer games. So he's able to take his parents on holiday and things like that. And it is amazing how much money can be made out of computer games. if you are one of the very, very big YouTubers. So that was a quick chat on how I think computer games affect or do not affect real life. I've just gone through, 22 blocks? Yeah. And we have a rough diamond, a copper lamellae, copper chain, 2 spearheads, 12, what are they, flint arrowheads, those are copper spearheads, 21 flax, 39 bones, oh my word, 3 sundry rib cages, 2 rusty gears, 3 candles, 3 silver, 1 piece of native gold, and some copper arrowheads. I'm going to keep on panning. Thank you for listening to me. Goodbye, my friends.